Janitor? You mean your wife's the janitor? Someone laughed, glasses clinking under the ballroom lights. Evan forced a grin. Rhea's eyes didn't flinch, but the air froze when Gideon Frost, his boss, looked their way and said, "Janitor? That's strange. She signs your paychecks." Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, Malaysia, UK, Australia, Jamaica. Denver's skyline gleamed beneath the fading winter sun, the Rockies painted violet in the distance. Inside a two-bedroom condo downtown, Evan McLean sat at his desk, staring at an email that pulsed like a dream come true. The Frost Foundation Annual Gala, invitation only. He whispered the words again, letting them settle like champagne bubbles in his chest. It was the night every executive at Frost Industrial Group wanted to attend. The night when promotions were whispered over cocktails and reputations crystallized under chandeliers. "Rhea!" he called, voice sharp with excitement. From the kitchen came her steady answer. "Yeah. Come here, you have to see this." Rhea Caldwell McLean wiped her hands on a dish towel, the faint scent of lemon cleaner clinging to her fingertips. She wore her usual work attire, plain jeans and a gray sweatshirt with her company logo, Blue Spruce Cleaning Services. The logo always made Evan's stomach twist. He wished she'd wear something less ordinary when he came home. She leaned over his shoulder. "The Frost Gala?" Evan turned toward her, eyes gleaming. "The Frost Gala," he repeated, drawing out the syllables. "You know what this means, right?" "It means your company appreciates what you do," she said, smiling softly. He corrected her almost immediately. "No, it means they're finally seeing me. This is where real partnerships begin. Gideon Frost himself attends. One conversation could change my life." Rhea's smile stayed, but it thinned slightly. "That's wonderful, Evan." He stood up, pacing. "I'll need a tuxedo. Maybe rent a luxury car for the night. Presentation matters." "And me?" she asked. He stopped, unsure why the question irritated him. "Of course you'll come," he said, forcing a grin. "It's a couples event. But, let's keep it elegant and simple, yeah? Maybe that navy dress you wore to the community dinner." Rhea tilted her head. "Simple, like invisible?" Evan sighed. "Rhea, please. You know how these people are, judgmental. I'm just saying, let's not overdo it. You'll look perfect if you keep it modest." That word, modest, sat heavy between them. Rhea nodded slowly, her eyes soft but distant. "Whatever makes you comfortable." He missed the sting in her tone. He was too busy imagining himself shaking hands with men in tailored suits, laughing at their jokes, belonging. That evening, as snow flurries brushed against the window, Evan practiced small talk in the bathroom mirror. "Good evening, Mr. Frost. Pleasure to finally meet you. I've been following your sustainability initiatives closely." He paused, adjusting his tie, practicing a confident half-smile. From the hallway, Rhea's voice floated in. "You'll charm them fine, Evan. Just be yourself." He didn't hear the tenderness in it. "Being myself doesn't get promotions," he muttered. Rhea paused, then said softly, "Maybe not the version you think you need to be." He frowned at his reflection. What does that mean? But she didn't answer. The following week blurred into preparation. Evan spent half his paycheck renting a designer tuxedo and new cufflinks. He even had his hair trimmed at a salon downtown he couldn't afford. Each purchase felt like armor. Rhea, meanwhile, worked double shifts. Her company had just landed a new contract with a chain of hospitals. She barely mentioned it, only saying, "It's a big week for both of us." When Evan came home one night, he found her sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, phone on speaker. Her tone was firm, professional. "Yes, that's correct. Our compliance team has already submitted the revised proposal." The voice on the other end, male and respectful, replied, "Perfect, Ms. Caldwell. The board's impressed with your turnaround time." Evan froze in the doorway. Bored, he thought. Before he could ask, she ended the call. "Business?" he asked casually. "Just logistics," she said, closing the laptop. "You know how clients can be." He nodded, though curiosity prickled him. He'd never heard her speak with that commanding tone before. 2 nights before the gala, they sat in their living room, a modest space filled with warm lamps and framed travel photos. Evan scrolled through his company's intranet on his tablet. Did you know Gideon Frost's wife runs her own philanthropy foundation? The Frost Initiative for Emerging Entrepreneurs. It's huge. Rhea smiled faintly. She helps women start businesses, right? I read about that. Yeah, Evan said. It's incredible. I just want to make an impression, you know? Something memorable. Maybe start with kindness, Rhea murmured. He looked up. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, she said, standing to clear the dishes. Just, people remember how you treat others more than what you wear. Evan's jaw tightened. I'm not being rude, Rhea. I'm just aware of what success requires. She gave him a small smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. Respect doesn't require money, Evan. He didn't reply. The night before the gala, Denver's wind howled through the narrow streets like a warning. Rhea ironed Evan's tuxedo carefully, her movements slow and deliberate. He sat nearby, scrolling on his phone, half distracted. You sure about that blue tie? She asked. Yeah. It matches the Frost logo. Subtle branding. She nodded. Smart. There was a long pause. Rhea set down the iron and spoke quietly, not looking up. Evan, when we're there tomorrow, if people ask about me, what will you say? He blinked. What do you mean? I mean, what will you tell them I do? He chuckled nervously. You run a cleaning service. What else would I say? Rhea turned off the iron. Right. What else indeed? Something in her tone made him glance up, but she was already walking away. That night, Evan lay awake replaying his own words. You run a cleaning service. It didn't sound cruel in his head, just factual, but a small part of him wondered why it echoed like guilt. From the other room, faint light spilled under the door where Rhea sat at her desk, typing. Her screen glowed with spreadsheets and reports bearing a company name he'd never bothered to ask about. Caldwell Industrial Solutions. Outside, the snow started falling in thick, silent sheets. Evan rolled over, eyes on the ceiling, whispering to himself, tomorrow changes everything. And in a way, it would. Sometimes, the people we overlook the most are the ones holding up our entire world. If this beginning stirred something in you, don't look away. Subscribe, and see what happens when truth finally steps into the light. The morning of the gala dawned gray and crisp, Denver dusted with new snow that sparkled under a pale sky. Evan woke early, nerves crackling like static. Today was the day he'd finally prove he belonged among the Frost Foundation's elite. He rehearsed his introduction again as he shaved. Evan McLean, marketing strategist, focused on expansion metrics and brand synergy. It sounded confident, professional, like a man who deserved to be noticed. Rhea brewed coffee quietly in the kitchen, humming an old song her mother used to love. The melody felt domestic, grounding, and it irritated Evan more than it should have. You're awfully calm, he said, half smiling. Rhea poured him a mug. Excitement looks different on everyone. He took the cup but didn't drink. Don't be nervous tonight, okay? These people are particular. Just keep things simple. Simple, she repeated, like she was testing the word on her tongue. I'll remember that. The day unfolded like a checklist. Evan picked up his tuxedo from the downtown shop, practiced small talk in the car mirror, and called his coworker Matt Ridge to confirm what time the team was arriving. Matt's easy confidence gnawed at him. You bringing anyone, Evan? My wife, he said quickly. Oh right, Rhea, the cleaning business, right? Evan's stomach clenched. Yeah, she runs her own company. Matt whistled. Ambitious. You two sound solid. Evan forced a laugh, even though something in him prickled. We manage. When he hung up, his reflection looked older than he felt. He loosened his collar and muttered, We manage, like he needed to believe it. At home, Rhea was wrapping up a call when he returned. Her tone was firm again, calm but decisive. Yes, Tell procurement we'll sign once the audit clears, she said into her headset. No shortcuts. Compliance first. Evan frowned, setting down his garment bag. You're still working? It's our big night. She turned toward him, voice steady. Work doesn't stop just because people are throwing parties. You sound like an executive when you talk like that, he said with a teasing grin. Her eyes flickered with something unreadable. Do I? He laughed awkwardly. I mean, it suits you. Just, don't use that tone with Frost's people, all right? They might take it the wrong way. The wrong way, she repeated, a trace of dry amusement in her voice. Right. By late afternoon, the condo looked like a storm had passed through. Shoes, tie clips, perfume, lint rollers. Evan's nervous energy filled every corner. Rhea moved slowly through it, deliberate and serene. She'd chosen a black satin gown, modest but cut with effortless elegance. Her natural curls framed her face, gold earrings small and classic. When she stepped into the room, Evan actually froze. Wow, he said, then added quickly. You clean up nice. Her smile was soft but faint. I do that for a living, remember? He winced. That's not what I know, she said. Let's go. The drive to the Summit Hotel took nearly an hour through slow traffic and glistening streets. Evan's nerves turned every red light into torture. He checked his watch, adjusted his cufflinks, rehearsed. Good evening, Mr. Frost. Pleasure to finally meet you. He glanced at Rhea. You'll love the ballroom, state-of-the-art lighting, world-class catering. She looked out the window at the snowy peaks glowing orange in sunset. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. You don't sound impressed. Beauty doesn't need me to sound impressed, she said gently. It just is. Evan sighed. You always have to be poetic, huh? I'm not trying, she murmured. They arrived as twilight settled. The Summit Hotel's entrance shimmered with gold-white lights. Luxury cars lined up beneath a marble awning. Evan's chest swelled with adrenaline. A valet opened the door. Cameras flashed as guests stepped onto the carpet. Okay, Evan whispered. Remember, first impressions. Smile, be polite, let me do the talking. Rhea's voice was low. You mean the introductions? Exactly. Inside, the lobby gleamed like a cathedral. Crystal chandeliers, marble columns, waiters in white gloves. The hum of conversation buzzed around them, the air thick with perfume and ambition. Matt spotted him first. Evan, you made it. Evan grinned, clasping his colleague's shoulder. Wouldn't miss it. Matt's gaze shifted to Rhea. And this lovely lady must be my wife, Evan interrupted quickly, forcing a casual tone. She, runs a janitorial service. Keeps things organized at home too. Matt smiled politely. That's great. Hard-working profession. Yeah, Evan said too fast. She's good with people, detail-oriented, humble. Rhea stood quiet, smile faint. Matt excused himself a moment later. The silence that followed pressed like weight. Rhea looked at him. Detail-oriented and humble, she repeated. Evan tugged at his collar. What? It's true. Is that all I am to you, Evan? A detail. He sighed. Rhea, not here. Please. She nodded once. Not here. They drifted toward the main ballroom where a jazz trio played beneath a banner that read, Innovation with Integrity, the Frost Foundation. Guests mingled in glittering clusters. Evan introduced himself to senior partners, each conversation laced with tension. He laughed too loudly, listened too little. Each time someone's eyes flicked to Rhea, he filled the silence with explanation. She's not in our industry. Different world entirely. Rhea smiled through it, her posture graceful, her silence dignified. Across the room, a man approached the podium to test the microphone. Gideon Frost himself. Tall, silver-haired, a presence that hushed the room. The sight of him made Evan's heart kick. This was it. This was his chance. Come on, he whispered to Rhea. Let's move closer. As they approached, Rhea hesitated near a display board listing the evening sponsors. Her eyes lingered on a familiar name, Caldwell Industrial Solutions. Evan followed her gaze. Big donor, huh? You know them. Her expression didn't change. A little. He didn't ask what that meant. During cocktails, small details began to build like pressure in a sealed room. A woman in a green dress greeted Rhea warmly, mistaking her for someone she knew. Aren't you on the advisory council? Rhea smiled politely. Not officially. Evan cut in with a nervous laugh. My wife's just being modest. The woman blinked, puzzled. Oh, I must be mistaken. She walked off. Rhea turned to him. You keep correcting people before they finish their sentences. I'm just trying to manage impressions. Whose? She asked softly. He didn't answer. By dinner, the tension between them was quiet but alive. Evan's laughter grew louder, his charm more forced. Every toast, every compliment felt like a stage light on his insecurity. Rhea watched him, calm and unreadable, her gaze somewhere far away. When the servers cleared the plates, she excused herself for air. Evan barely noticed. He was mid-story about strategic brand engagement when the CEO's assistant approached him. Mr. McLean, she said, smiling. Mr. Frost would like to meet you and your wife after his speech. Evan's pulse leapt. Of course. Tell him we'd be honored. The assistant nodded. He mentioned he's especially eager to thank Rhea. Evan blinked. Thank her? For what? The assistant smiled politely. I suppose you'll find out. She walked away, leaving Evan staring after her, confusion twisting in his gut. Across the room, Rhea re-entered the ballroom, composed, luminous under the chandelier light. Evan watched her from a distance, suddenly aware that he didn't know which world she truly belonged to, and that he might have been living in the wrong one all along. The music swelled, the stage lights brightened, and somewhere deep inside his chest, unease began to bloom. The ballroom shimmered under golden light as the evening reached its peak. The hum of laughter and clinking glasses floated like champagne bubbles. Evan sat at a round table near the stage, the Frost Foundation logo projected elegantly across the wall behind the podium. His pulse thudded against his collarbone. This was the moment he'd imagined for years. Being noticed. Being somebody. Rhea sat beside him, calm, hands folded neatly in her lap. From across the table, Matt raised a glass. To success, McLean? I think you're next in line for the big chair. Evan grinned, ego flaring. Let's hope Mr. Frost sees it that way. He glanced toward the head table. Gideon Frost, the man himself, was in deep conversation with the mayor of Denver. His silver hair caught the light, his presence quiet but commanding. Evan adjusted his cufflinks again, imagining shaking that man's hand. The orchestra softened to a murmur. Gideon stood, drawing the room into polite silence. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice smooth as glass. Tonight, we celebrate more than business. We celebrate integrity, partnership, and the people who make this city thrive. Applause rippled across the room. Evan clapped too hard, smiling too wide. And before we begin our awards, Gideon continued, I'd like to acknowledge a few key contributors whose vision and leadership have shaped our ongoing sustainability initiative. Evan leaned forward. This could be it. His name might be next. Gideon scanned the crowd. But before I name them, I want to recognize someone whose work often goes unseen, but without whom tonight's event, and indeed this foundation, would not exist as it does. A hush settled. Evan felt his heart jump. He's building suspense. He's about to say me. Then Gideon said, clearly and warmly, Rhea Caldwell McLean. Evan froze. Every head at their table turned. Rhea stood slowly, graceful, serene. Gideon extended a hand toward her. Ladies and gentlemen, he continued, many of you know Rhea as the CEO of Caldwell Industrial Solutions, our primary partner in renewable infrastructure and tonight's lead sponsor. Applause erupted, thunderous and sincere. Cameras flashed. People rose to their feet. Evan couldn't breathe. CEO. The word bounced in his skull, absurd and sharp. His wife, his quiet, modest, janitor wife, was standing on stage beside the man who controlled his professional future. Rhea took the microphone. Her voice was steady, composed. Thank you, Mr. Frost. It's an honor to support the Frost Foundation and the work it does in our communities. When my team at Caldwell began this partnership, we believed change starts with responsibility. Not the kind we print in reports, but the kind we show in how we treat people, especially when we think no one important is watching. The line landed like a slow, deliberate strike. The audience murmured their approval. Evan's throat went dry. Gideon smiled. That's the kind of leadership this city needs. A round of applause, please. The room erupted again. Rhea's eyes swept the crowd once, and briefly, they met Evan's. There was no anger there, just a quiet, devastating calm. She stepped down, greeted by other executives and city leaders. Hands reached for hers, cameras followed. Evan remained seated, a hollow statue in a tuxedo, clapping mechanically while his insides crumbled. Matt leaned over, whispering, "Wait, that's your wife? CEO Caldwell? You said she was." He stopped, realizing too late how that sentence ended. Evan's stomach flipped. "Yeah," he muttered, voice brittle. "I guess I left that part out." But the truth was uglier. He hadn't left it out. He hadn't known. Or maybe he'd never cared enough to find out. After the speeches ended, the crowd dispersed into small constellations of networking conversations. Evan's ears buzzed. His colleagues watched him differently now. Some pitying, some amused. "Evan!" someone called. It was Gideon Frost himself, smiling as he approached with a glass of wine. "I didn't realize you were Rhea's husband. You must be proud." Evan's mouth opened, but words refused to come. "Rhea's one of the sharpest minds I've met," Gideon continued. "Her insights into our sustainability model saved this entire partnership last year. You've married brilliance, my friend." He patted Evan's shoulder kindly and moved on, leaving the weight of those words like a stone on his chest. Evan turned, searching for Rhea through the sea of people. He found her by the balcony doors, surrounded by city leaders, her smile poised but tired. When she finally slipped away for a breath of air, he followed. The balcony overlooked downtown Denver, twinkling beneath falling snow. Rhea stood by the railing, her breath visible in the cold night. "Rhea," he said, stepping out. She turned, the soft glow from inside catching her face. "Evan, you're the CEO of Caldwell Industrial?" Her expression didn't change. "Yes. And you didn't think to tell me?" She tilted her head. "You never asked." He blinked. "That's not fair." "It's not," she asked quietly. "You asked about clients, contracts, and cleaning schedules, but never once asked what I built. You just assumed Janitor was the beginning and end of me." Evan's breath hitched. "I wasn't trying to insult you. You introduced me that way, Evan." Her tone was calm, almost tender. "To people you wanted to impress. You made me small so you could feel big." He ran a hand through his hair, shaking. "I thought I had to play the part. I thought image mattered." "And what does image cost?" she asked. He stared at her. "Apparently, everything." Inside, laughter rose again, oblivious to the storm brewing on the balcony. Rhea looked out at the city. "Do you remember when we first met?" He nodded faintly. "At that volunteer event. You were organizing supplies for the shelter. You told me you admired that I didn't care about appearances." "I did." "You still could," she said softly, "if you learned to see again." Evan's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," she said, meeting his eyes. "That's what makes it worse." She stepped closer, her voice low. "Evan, success isn't the room's applause. It's how you treat the person who'd still clap for you when the room goes silent." She turned and walked back inside, leaving him under the snowfall, the echo of her words settling deeper than any humiliation could. Later, the gala ended. Staff cleared tables, laughter faded, and only echoes of music remained. Evan stood alone by the empty bar, watching Rhea shake hands with the governor, then Gideon, before finally taking her coat. She didn't look back at him. Not once. When she left, A waiter began wiping down the counters nearby. The irony wasn't lost on him. For the first time, Evan saw what dignity really looked like, and it had nothing to do with a tuxedo. He whispered to no one, "I called her a janitor." The waiter glanced up briefly, then kept cleaning. Evan stood there until the room emptied, then stepped outside into the cold. Snowflakes melted on his face like quiet forgiveness that hadn't arrived yet. He looked up at the hotel's glowing windows and said to himself, voice barely audible, "I made her small." Have you ever called someone less just because you couldn't see their full story? Don't scroll past that feeling. Sit with it. Because the ones we shrink are often the ones who could have lifted us higher. If this truth hit you, subscribe to this channel because the hardest lessons are the ones that make us human. The next morning, Denver woke beneath a pale wash of sunlight. The snow from the night before had crusted into thin, sparkling sheets that covered cars and rooftops. Inside the McLean condo, everything was still. Too still. Evan sat on the couch, tuxedo jacket tossed over a chair, half-empty glass of water sweating in his hand. His phone buzzed constantly. Texts from coworkers, notifications from social media, unread messages he didn't dare open. He didn't need to. He already knew what they said. "So that's your wife. You really didn't know? Bro, you okay? That was brutal." He scrolled until his thumb hurt, then dropped the phone onto the coffee table. The silence pressed heavy on his chest. Ria's side of the bed had been empty when he woke up. Her shoes were gone, her coat missing from the hook. The absence spoke louder than anger could. He stared at the window, Denver's skyline clear against the snowy mountains, and whispered to the glass, "You did this." By noon, the condo door clicked. Ria walked in, still wearing the same black coat from the night before, her curls pinned up neatly, face composed. She looked like she'd been in meetings, not heartbreak. Evan stood immediately. "Ria." "Evan," she said, voice calm but distant. "I'm only here to grab a few things." He swallowed hard. "Can we talk first?" She hesitated, then nodded slightly. 2 minutes. He gestured toward the couch. She didn't sit. "I didn't know," he started, voice trembling. "I swear to God, I didn't know about Caldwell Industrial, or the foundation, or any of it." Her gaze didn't waver. "That's true." Relief flickered across his face, until she added, "You didn't know because you never asked." He opened his mouth to protest, but she held up a hand. "You were so busy performing the version of yourself you thought people wanted, you never stopped to look at the life you already had." Evan's shoulders sagged. "I just wanted to belong. I didn't want people to think less of me." Ria's voice softened. "So, you made me the one they could think less of." He flinched, turning away, rubbing his forehead. "That's not what I meant to do." "Intent doesn't erase impact," she said. "It never does." Her words fell into the space between them like stones breaking ice. Evan sat down, fingers digging into his knees. "I keep replaying last night. You standing there on that stage, the whole room staring at me. I've never felt so small." "Now you know what you made me feel," she said simply. He looked up, eyes wet. "I didn't mean it like that." "I know," she replied. "But that's the problem, Evan. You didn't mean to, yet you did it easily. You didn't even have to think about it." He blinked hard, fighting tears. "Why didn't you tell me? You could have stopped it before it happened." Her expression softened, not with forgiveness, but with clarity. "Because if I told you, you wouldn't have believed I earned it. You would have assumed someone handed me power to make me look equal to you." "That's not true," he said, voice cracking. "Isn't it?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Ria finally sat down, placing her purse beside her. "Evan, do you remember the first time you came home excited about a client dinner? You told me, they liked me because I sound like one of them." He nodded faintly. "That's when I realized," she said, "you were building a life around being liked instead of being real." He swallowed, staring at the carpet. "I thought if I just acted the part long enough, maybe I'd become it." "And instead," she said quietly, "you became someone who lied to himself." The words landed like a verdict. For a while, neither spoke. Outside, a snowplow rumbled faintly down the street. Rhea leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Evan, before last night, I still loved you. I still hoped you'd grow out of this obsession with perception. But when you introduced me as a janitor, her voice faltered for the first time, barely audible. You didn't just disrespect me. You erased me. He broke. Rhea, I'm sorry. I swear, I would do anything to take it back. I don't need you to take it back, she said. I need you to understand why you said it in the first place. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of being looked down on, he said. Of being average. Of being forgettable. She nodded slowly. And so you made me smaller. Because you thought you could only rise if someone else shrank. He didn't deny it this time. He just whispered, yes. She stood, walking toward the window, staring out at the frozen city. You know what's ironic, Evan? I never hid who I was. My business is public record. My name's on the company website. But you never looked. You didn't want to know if it didn't serve your narrative. He followed her gaze. I wanted us to be something people admired. Her tone was calm. And now? I just want to be someone you can respect again, he said quietly. Rhea's reflection in the glass showed a flicker of emotion. Sadness, maybe compassion. Respect isn't something you ask for, Evan. It's something you live into. He nodded, tears streaking his cheeks. She turned toward him, crossing her arms gently. I'm not leaving to punish you, she said. I'm leaving because I need peace. You need space to see who you really are without the applause. He took a step forward, desperate. Can I call you? Just to talk. Not for a while, she said. Let both of us breathe first. Are you coming back? Her answer was honest. I don't know. She picked up her bag, slipped on her gloves, and paused by the door. If you want to fix this, don't chase me. Fix yourself. Then she was gone, the click of the latch final as a gavel. Evan stood frozen in the doorway long after she left. The condo felt colder, emptier, stripped of color. He wandered into the bathroom and caught his reflection in the mirror, the same one he'd practiced introductions in days ago. He looked different now. Hollow eyes, slumped shoulders, no performance left. Who are you when nobody's watching? He whispered. The mirror didn't answer. Hours passed. He made coffee, poured it down the sink, tried to read, couldn't focus. His mind replayed every scene. Rhea's silence at the gala, the way Gideon Frost had said her name with reverence, the way she'd looked at him last night. Not angry, just done. By evening, the city lights shimmered against a deep blue sky. Evan sat on the couch with his laptop open to a blank search bar. After a long pause, he typed, "Therapists near me." He stared at the results. Dozens of names appeared. He clicked one without overthinking, scheduled an appointment for Monday morning. Then he opened his email and drafted a message to his department head, requesting a week off for personal reasons. When he finally shut the laptop, the silence felt less like punishment and more like clarity. Outside, snow began to fall again. Slow, deliberate flakes landing against the windowpane. Evan stood there, watching them dissolve on contact, whispering to himself, "You can't clean a wound until you stop pretending it's not there." He didn't know if Rhea would come back. He didn't know what forgiveness would look like. But for the first time, he wasn't rehearsing a version of himself for anyone else. He was just sitting in the truth, raw and uncomfortable. And maybe that was where the real work began. The first thing Evan learned in therapy was that silence wasn't his enemy. It was his mirror. Every Monday at 9 a.m., he sat across from Dr. Elaine Harris, a woman in her 60s with gray curls, calm eyes, and a voice that didn't let him dodge the truth. At first, he filled every session with excuses. About pressure, about reputation, about how everyone in corporate America wears a mask. Dr. Harris didn't argue. She just waited until his words ran out, then asked, "And how's that mask working for you?" It took him 3 sessions to answer honestly, "It's suffocating me." The next few months passed like slow excavation. Evan stopped chasing validation, though the habit still twitched under his skin. He started volunteering on weekends at a downtown Denver shelter, one that his company used to sponsor for PR photos. This time, there were no cameras, no suits, just him in old jeans and gloves, mopping floors and serving meals. The first day, a volunteer named Marcus laughed lightly when Evan reached for the broom. "You don't have to start with the dirty work, man." Evan shook his head. "I think I do." He cleaned until his back ached, and for the first time, the ache felt like honesty instead of punishment. At home, the condo remained half empty. Rhea had taken only what she needed: her favorite mug, a few framed photos, her computer. Her perfume lingered faintly in the air like memory trying not to fade. Every morning, Evan made 2 cups of coffee out of habit. He drank one and poured the other down the sink. "Just in case you walk back in," he whispered once, feeling ridiculous. But in quiet moments, he began to notice what he'd ignored before: the sound of the radiator kicking on, the creak of the floorboards, the stillness that didn't demand applause. For years, he'd filled every silence with noise. Now he was learning how to live inside it. Rhea's name appeared in the news often. Caldwell Industrial Solutions had launched a mentorship program for women in sustainability. Photos showed her at conferences, standing behind podiums, her calm confidence unmistakable. Evan never reached out. He didn't want to intrude on her peace or cheapen his progress with an apology she wasn't ready to hear. Instead, he wrote letters, dozens of them, never sent. Each began the same way. "Rhea, I used to think loving you meant providing for you. Now I know it means respecting the space between us enough to grow." He folded the letters, placed them in a box under his bed, and went back to therapy. Dr. Harris pushed him harder with each visit. "When you humiliated your wife," she asked once, "what part of you were you really trying to protect?" Evan stared at the floor. "The part that's scared of being invisible." "And where did you learn that?" "My dad," he said. He used to say poor men have to act rich to earn respect. Dr. Harris nodded. "So you spent your life pretending to be someone you thought the world would like." He exhaled shakily. "Until I forgot who I was without the act. Then maybe," she said, "the work isn't about winning Rhea back. It's about learning to exist without performing." Evan didn't argue. For the first time, he understood. Spring crept into Colorado slowly, melting the snow into streams that trickled through the streets. Evan began jogging in the mornings, not to look successful, but to feel alive. He kept volunteering, kept journaling, kept showing up for himself instead of an audience. One morning, at the shelter, Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "We're short a coordinator for the literacy program. You've got a way with words. Wanna take it?" Evan laughed. "Man, you haven't read my emails." Marcus grinned. "You're learning how to listen. That's rarer than words." It was the first genuine compliment Evan had accepted in months. By summer, he felt grounded enough to attend a networking event again, this time not as a performance, but as presence. The Frost Foundation was hosting its mid-year luncheon, smaller than the Gala but similar faces. He almost didn't go. But part of his therapy was confronting spaces that once fed his insecurity. So he showed up, no tuxedo, no rehearsed smile, just a navy suit, clean-shaven, eyes steady. Halfway through the event, he saw her. Rhea stood near the back, speaking with a group of young entrepreneurs. Her laughter was soft but sure. When she noticed him, her expression didn't harden, but it didn't melt either. It simply acknowledged, "You're here." He walked over slowly. "Rhea. Evan. Congratulations on the mentorship program. It's incredible." "Thank you," she said. "You look well." "I'm learning," he admitted. "It's slow." "That's how you know it's real," she replied. They talked politely for a few minutes. There was no apology, no demand for closure. But as they parted, she said, "Keep learning, Evan." He nodded. "I will." Weeks later, a letter arrived at his condo. It wasn't romantic or long. Just Rhea's handwriting on a single page. "I heard from Gideon that you've been volunteering at the shelter. I'm glad. For what it's worth, I don't believe people are defined by their worst night, only by what they do after. Take care of yourself. Rhea. He read it 3 times, then folded it gently and placed it inside his wallet. Autumn returned before they met again. This time, it wasn't planned. Evan attended a local sustainability conference to represent the shelter's new community outreach program. Rhea was the keynote speaker. When she walked onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet. Her poise hadn't changed, but Evan noticed something new. She wasn't performing for the crowd. She was grounded, connected, speaking like someone who had made peace with herself. She said, "Integrity isn't about how loudly we claim to care. It's what we do when caring costs us something." The words sank into him. They always did. After the event, he waited until the crowd thinned, then approached her. "That was powerful," he said softly. "Thank you," she replied. "You seem steadier." "I stopped trying to win," he said. "Started listening instead." Her smile was small, genuine. "That's growth." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Finally, Evan asked, "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" "Just to talk." She considered him, then nodded once. "Coffee. Not closure." "Coffee," he agreed. A week later, they met at a small cafe near Boulder, the kind with no chandeliers, no cameras, just sunlight, wood tables, and quiet music. Rhea ordered tea. Evan, black coffee. For the first time in years, he didn't try to impress her. He just listened. She told him about her mentorship work, her travels, her plans for expansion. He shared about the shelter, therapy, and learning humility the hard way. When they finished, Rhea stood. "You've changed," she said. "Still changing," he corrected. She smiled. "Good. Change should never stop." He walked her to her car. No promises, no romantic reunion, just mutual respect born of survival. As she drove away, Evan stood in the parking lot, wind tousling his hair, the Rockies sharp against the horizon. For the first time, peace didn't feel like loss, it felt like truth. He whispered, "You were never beneath me. You were always beyond me." That evening, he returned home and hung a single-framed quote above his desk. "Respect isn't a title you earn in public, it's a habit you practice in private." The same words Rhea once spoke now guided him daily. He sat down, opened his laptop, and began writing. Not a letter this time, but a story. His story. And this time, he didn't edit out the guilt, or the shame, or the long, messy road back to decency. He left it all in, because truth, finally, didn't scare him anymore. How many times have you mistaken silence for weakness, or modesty for smallness? How many people have you only seen halfway? If this story reminded you of someone you've overlooked, reach out, apologize, listen. And if you want more stories that pull back the mask and hold up the mirror, subscribe to this channel. Because the real lessons don't come from success. They come from the people we once made small, and the courage it takes to see them fully.